Present.
Present, thank you.
All right. Do you have anybody joining us for public comment?
We do not, and I received nothing via email. You can take it as a note because no, it just means no one is concerned.
Exactly.
And those of us at the district are grateful for your support. Correct. Yeah. We're making some corrective language that's more precise on the treasurer's report as we've made some changes over some of the investment tools. We do want to make sure that we're capturing their language specifically from their statements so that it is more precise. Not really. You're going to start seeing some of the things that fall into calendar year as opposed to fiscal year expenses. So you may see some of those. I think we do no, I can't recall off the top of my head, but there's certain expenditures you start to see that hit calendar that typically we will try to make sure that they're on the budget plan the month that they fall, but sometimes those get a little out of phase. But there was really nothing unique.
Okay.
You'll also note that in the report, it's essentially now broken down by vendor. And that was one of the ways that QuickBooks Online allows us to have a little more detail, because it doesn't create that memo line like the old desktops version used to. I know Marnie is still trying to find the best way to make this as transparent as possible, but this way you can see who we wrote the check to, the date, the amount, and then on the far right is the account line item that we put it to, so it corresponds with the budget.
So it certainly is helpful to have the vendors alphabetical.
Absolutely.
Or something, so that's very helpful.
Right. Traditionally, we just had them listed as they went through, but this is kind of a nice fortuitous option.
October 2022.
Yeah, the card is still listed as Linda Bannerman. It is coming up for expiration renewal. I've already contacted Umpqua through their generic outlet to make sure that they update that card into Judith's name. We've already sent them the change in signers and all that. But I will ping them to see if they can confirm that they'll do that and not just send us another card with expiration date.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because we are doing things a little differently, so I want to make sure they
Mm-hmm.
track me correctly. So, these are figures July to October.
Correct.
Okay. And on the far right-hand side, here's the budget listed with July and October.
Correct.
Okay. So, and
Are you looking at admin or wellness, or does it matter?
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But I'm noticing that we underspent in quite a few categories. And I'm just wondering, since the actual budget is for those months, not for the year, what might account for that revenues? I'm just wondering about the pattern that we would underspend so much for, since the underspending is based upon budget for those months.
It may depend on what that particular expense was. A lot of times when I know that we'll have a large bill, but I'm not sure when it's going to hit throughout the year, I will put it at the front of instead of at the end of the budget year. Sometimes things cost less in the beginning of the year, and as we start ramping up priorities or plans, we end up spending a little later in the year.
So
I would say it's a flow thing. Generally, my strategy with the budget has been to front load the expenses, expect that we'll have lower income in the beginning. So that's typically where I'll put that. Yeah, we're coming on to the 6-month mark. So typically this is where we start seeing some things even out, so that by the time we do hit those July finances, I try to really make sure that's when we're landing the plane. Right. And again, to Judith's point, as we changed the chart of account and moved over to online this year, certain expenses went to different line items. Marnie and Judith have been double checking to make sure that we're being consistent, that we're being logical in what fits where. sometimes the planning, it made sense. And then reality, it shows up and we forget that it had to be split between the two properties or something of that nature. But
And then on the, I know that the between mid and long and short-term assets probably will show up for a while.
it won't show up till next month.
Okay.
Yeah. The one to me. He had a few questions and some of it specifically related to how we were reporting.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's easier to follow instead of this massive adjustment at the end of the year. And we've had that in place since the beginning.
And what that leads me to another question. Education. For that, running.
Yeah.
I think I just working.
Yes. And then just so you know, Judith actually has a separate spreadsheet where she's keeping track of, where folks are so that if they start to hit those policy level thresholds where they can no longer accrue more or something of that sort, that had happened here before our tenure. And we had a couple of employees that had booked very large amounts beyond what was appropriate for policy. So we have a trigger mechanism. We're making sure that doesn't happen again. It's important that staff get and take that time off.
Yeah.
It's part of their. Well, and we also don't want them burning out, right? It is.
It's something with reminders. Yeah. We don't see them anymore.
We don't have that problem. We don't have that problem with this staff. Teresa's personal holiday was yesterday, hence she has her Disney ears and her. Okay. For no, we did our quarterly transfer. I think that was last month. We did, yeah. Well, that covered July, August, September. We did the transfer in October. So you'll see October, November, December, and then in February, when we see the December financials, that's when we'll look at another transfer to reimburse. We'll have quite a few things because we'll have finished A2, building A, room 2, HVAC. We'll have finalized that out. We have some from facilities. We have some ADA ramps. So the engineering for that will have should have gone through by then. We may have that whole project completed by then, depending on weather and concrete. Hopefully we don't see rain until later. I'm kind of hoping for a dry winter that'll keep us on task. And then obviously we'll start to see what happens, presuming we move forward with Site Logic. I am awaiting some information for the room renovation that will have to go out to bid. We probably won't see those expenses in this next update. So, but you'll see more and more of it. Again, we keep that transfer though at quarterly. So we keep the report ongoing monthly, but we do the transfer quarterly. So we saw the big bump that came from Horse Creek. Thank you, Judith, for your property taxes. From that really started seeing that build out, I think, show up in 20 and 21, which is why we didn't see a COVID hit at all. For the new properties that are more that Bonsall zone, those new homes down there, I don't think we'll probably see those property taxes until probably 25, because it's almost a full year lag because you have such partial buildup. That would be what my guess is. I'm trying to remember, did they talk about that in that market analysis? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I would think we would probably see it more in 25, 26. That would be my guess. Yeah. The Havens. Well, from the developer builders for sure. Yeah. I will admit we did a staff rabbit hole and circled down into it to look at their glossy marketing video, and they're definitely selling a lifestyle. So yeah, we did look at that, but I think even though they may have deposits on things that aren't built out yet, because weren't they close to maximum or something like that? Havens. What community was it? They were like, oh, we're already sold out.
Oh, no, they said that the first round.
First round.
They have several rounds.
Right. Right.
A million doesn't go as far as.
No.
Oh. I don't want that one. I want the big one.
I'm sure we'll.
Well, with all of the tremendous programming priorities that we're seeing on Teresa's agended list, yes, there won't be any problem investing that back in the community. Thank you. Well, and I will let you all know, obviously, for the last few years, I have been doing the budget pretty much solo. Obviously, bring it to the board as such. But this will be a fun new budget year. Right. Right. So Judith has obviously been stepping up significantly more into looking at the granular details of a lot of our finances. So I expect she'll have a lot more input into the budgeting this year. Teresa will be involved in the budgeting so that she can own some of the wellness stuff, as well as learning all the pieces that go into it. Obviously, she doesn't have as much control over payroll taxes. I mean, we don't really have control, but understanding what those expenses are, what goes into it, understanding the overall budgeting process. So we'll probably start a little bit earlier this year just to make sure that we all have the same assumptions and process. And then typically I don't drag Susan in too much until we're closer to a final project so she can look at it to make sure we haven't flubbed anything significantly, forgotten anything significant. I don't do the below the line budgeting because depreciation is not a thing. It's not real. But some of those different pieces that we don't really have control from an operational standpoint. So, but that should make for an expansive budget process this year. And I'm looking forward to. Yeah, I'm like,
give us a grin next time.
or the side wing, you know. I was just going to give you the, yeah, no.
Well, it sounds like with our new auditor, we have a true partner as well. As I look through the report that was in the agenda, the final.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the
it's nice to have a partner this time instead of almost an adversary with the last auditor. I mean, it's not like Niagara and Niagara are suddenly in cahoots or anything of that nature, but they're so professional that you can come to them with a number of different questions and actually get a logical understanding of why, from the auditor standpoint, this is how they interpret them. And that is so helpful. Right. so glad you said that because I'm so looking forward to the January 13th strategic planning workshop, because this year, obviously, we'll really hone in on that mission and vision as we put forward for budgeting for programming expenses, all of that. Yeah. I would not be surprised if that.
Adjustments are good.
Well, I mean, we are in a period of adjustment and change and growth from the kind of district we were to where we imagine we will eventually be. So changing those mission statements is reasonable.
San Diego.
So I sent an email out with a link to everyone on that, so you can find that in there. So that link's a little easier. Jennifer sent that, alerted me to that, and I found it. Obviously, their board is having some significant disagreements with one another. Their Palomar is going to be challenged with their financial operations, with the changes to Kaiser and their overall debt load. So their management and board not being very in lockstep, if you will. There's a lot of dissension among the board and the leadership. So that's right. Was that Linda or Lori? Lori, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bridge.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think they're a 7-member board. I think they're a 5-2 split. Just to, I want to make sure we're getting that correct. And there's a lot of, obviously they've had some controversy around their website terms of use. They are discussing this idea of bringing in a management company that would not a script, not a sharp Grossmont kind of conversation, where the board would sort of still be involved, but not be involved, but they're trying to do it in a way that the public wouldn't have a voice into it. Obviously, that seems to be one side of the conversation. So there's a lot of unsettled air over there. And they're the largest health district overall. So it's a large impact. No, he does not. No. And I'm sure Jeff could wax poetic on the history of that board. I wouldn't think so. It doesn't directly impact what we do. And I think we want to be a good neighbor and let the domestic situation work out within their own household before or at all, if we needed to have any kind of statement. Our board is well functioning. We're focusing on our mission. No, it seems like whatever kerfluffle had happened between Tri-City and Palomar has already essentially been mostly settled. now that Tri-City is working their JPA conversation with UCSD. They're in a whole different set of conversations. Obviously, our ongoing expected relationship with Tri-City will be impacted by that. So following what's happening there makes sense. Jeff is obviously counsel for the board at Tri-City there. So I'm sure there will be parts of that conversation. I've stayed in touch with Gene Ma, who's the CEO over there. I gave him some time when they were recovering from their cyber hack. But just to remind them that we are a shared vision in bringing services down this 76 corridor to better serve our folks as well. So that is a more intuitive partner than Palomar is anyway. So. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.